Who in their right mind would use these golf clubs? Even Rickie in 2025 is using something more forgiving than what I have in my hands here. However, it got me thinking, with forgiveness to one side, what would be the slowest club head speed that would be able to utilize what is essentially a butter knife? I saw this great chart on Ping's website when it comes to 7 iron conditions, when it comes to launch angle, backspin, ball speed, descent angle, all of the above. And it got me thinking, could I hit all of those windows with these particular clubs? Because there's a misconception that these certain irons aren't as powerful as, let's say, your de-lofted cavity back. And don't get me wrong, with the 7 iron lofted at 34 degrees, and most of those cavity back irons lofted at 29 degrees, of course you are going to get more efficiency, which means more ball speed. And for the average golfer, that has to weigh up missed strikes as well as their over-the-top swing, potentially too much backspin. Well, of course, that cavity back iron will produce great numbers for them, opposed to the golf club that I have in my hand. The reason this video is going to be so valuable is that hopefully it gives you a better understanding of why your irons don't go as far as your mates, even though you swing faster than them. Or potentially some irons in your bag are really good, i.e. the 9, 8 and 7, but you can't hit a 6 or 5 iron to save your life. Now quickly, a massive thank you to the guys at Replay Golf for lending me these irons. There's actually, and I'll show you some prices here on the right hand side, they're very reasonable, considering this version of the iron retailed for about £1,200 about 4 years ago. But then that's why I had the thought for this video, is because who in their right mind is actually going to buy these? Because if you're potentially at the level to hit these kind of irons, well, you're just going to get custom fitted for them brand new. So this was actually the second edition of the RF Rickie Fowler MBI, and there was a limited edition one, the Rev 33, I believe. They were £2,500 a set, brand new. These were £1,200. This was the next release. I have the KBS Tour 120C taper shaft in here, which I absolutely love this shaft. I used to have it in X-Diff. One thing else that I love is the idea of you guys subscribing if you find anything in this video useful, as I'm on a goal for 100,000 subscribers this year. Few things to note from this iron, and to be perfectly honest, there's not really that much to talk about apart from it is absolutely tiny. Again, that is the head next to the ball there. We've essentially got 1/4 of an inch either side of the ball. And then the second thing to know, no offset whatsoever, which brings me into our first talking point. There's 2 things I want to cover through this test today to basically teach you guys to hit your irons either further or potentially a lot more controlled. Okay, swing number 1. We're going to go relatively fast, and I am going to make sure this face is incredibly open on the way down, which means that I'm going to then have to cast the club on the way through. I'm going to be over the top. My efficiency is going to be awful. Actually, I'll probably go for a nice long swing as well. There she is. 100 miles an hour club head speed I got out of that. Very poor efficiency, and I'll explain why that's inefficient, and it's got nothing to do with the golf club. Very high launch angle for this particular club head speed, and aggressive 7,000 backspin, meaning we only got 150 yards off 100 miles an hour. Now swing number 2, the opposite of what I've just done there, and this isn't a good swing either. We want a bit of both. But I want to show you 2 sides of the spectrum so you can potentially have a good understanding of why your irons aren't going far enough, or potentially you haven't got enough control in stopping it on a green. We're going to come around very flat, very shut with the face. Notice how bowed my left wrist is here. Still going to be fast, but a short swing from this position. And notice when my club face is this shut, to keep that face pointing at the target at the point of impact, notice how much I would have to drive my hands forward. This 7 iron that would be 34 degrees, realistically in my hands with that swing, will now be more like 17 versus the swing 1 that I just showed you, open club face, to get that face pointing at the target in the last millisecond of this swing. I'm gonna have to do that. I'm probably gonna have to back away from the ball as well. It's why wrist position in the downswing is so important in terms of your launch angle and your spin rate. Right, this should be relatively natural for me considering this is my floor. There she is. Wasn't the greatest strike, mind you, 1.35. Now we got 93 miles an hour out of it, but considerable more ball speed. Why? Because dynamic loft plays a huge part in terms of efficiency. Again, swing one, I was coming in like this towards the ball, and look how the ball would just glance up that face. Swing two, I'm coming in like this towards the ball, and that's essentially just hitting a brick wall. It's why our drivers always are more efficient, i.e. you're gonna get 150 miles an hour ball speed from 100 miles an hour club head speed if hit perfectly. I mean, very rarely do we do that. So that would be 1.5. And with a wedge at 100 miles an hour, which again is impossible, but 100 mile an hour, there'd be a few people in the world, 100 mile an hour, you'd probably get 110, 1.1. Why? Because your wedge is basically like that at impact. But look at the stark contrast between these two balls. That one was swung at 100 miles an hour. That one was swung at 93 miles an hour. However, that's at the incredibly fast speed. And we obviously want to wind back the speed a bit, looking at trying to keep these launch angles and spin levels consistent, because as we look at the chart below, the launch angle has to increase, the spin has to somewhat drop, and we have to make sure we're still getting decent ball speed, otherwise you're never going to get the distance you deserve. Now again, I'm not recommending this club to you guys watching this video, and even though some people swear by the soft buttery feel of a blade out the middle, for me it's more like pure relief when you find the middle from a blade that feels euphoric, not actually the feel and sound. However, what I do want to show you guys, which is invaluable, is the fact that everyone could hit this, maybe 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 with the perfect numbers, but realistically why they have to use something like this to get the same appropriate numbers, and all of it will make a lot more sense in a minute. I talk a lot about power source, where power is generated with my lessons, and to be fair, what I'm about to show you does require flexibility, does require range of movement. However, the majority of people that I see that want more distance with their irons, even want more distance with their driver, this goes throughout the bag, but they have incredible speed, is because they generate it from the wrong places. They generate it with too long of a swing, their left hand is very cut, that club face is incredibly open, because their right elbow is so high and nowhere near on the golf grip, the only trigger move from this position is yanking down with that left hand. Now, because they've got great hand-to-eye coordination, potentially played baseball, cricket, tennis, whatever it is, they can then stand up, which helps release their golf club, flip their hand on the way through, and when the stars align, they make good contact, but they get a very high launch angle. They get a lot of spin, just like I showed a minute ago with swing number one, and because that swing also is very difficult to time, this would make sense. It's offset, it's de-lofted, which helps with those launch angles. If you hit the ground slightly before the ball, that bounce is going to help you. However, what I show them and why I'm certain I can hit these kind of windows in a minute when we obviously go through the table and I go slower and slower, and why I say every golfer could hit this club well through those windows, even with forgiveness to one side, and obviously they need the flexibility to do it, which obviously will make sense in a minute, is because I show them where I'm driving the power from in my swing. One thing I would love to show you guys is essentially from this position alone, where I can't use my shoulders, I can't use my arms, I can't use this left hand yanking that center of gravity down, is how much club head speed I have the ability to gain from just that position. 58.5, I can do better than that. Oh, that was better. 61.8. Now, the fact I have the ability to gain 62 miles an hour from there with a relatively neutral path, slightly down on it, again, I didn't hit it great, but it's also the reason why I have the ability to take the club back here and then get 80 miles an hour out of the club. 79.6. I promise you guys, if you want to get more distance in 2025, just try and hit a golf ball from here as hard as you can. If you feel the need to take the club back, you are this player that relies on the bending and the arms to hit your ball. You are using absolutely none of this. It will feel incredibly, just do it at home. Put the phone down, stop watching the TV, grab a golf club and try and hit a ball just from that position with no backswing. The second reason this gives you distance as well is that you're learning to keep this wrist flat, that club face shut, and driving power, not only with the hands and the hips, but then releasing the club as well. You can then compound this movement of the lower half and the hands to then get a lot of power into the ball. I must stress that movement there takes a lot of range of movement and a lot of flexibility, and is why these clubs are invented. There's nothing wrong with them, they're great, and I club fit for these all the time. However, how slowly can we hit this and still get the perfect numbers? Right, starting up, 95 miles an hour, between 95 and 100 miles an hour. I'm still nursing my ankle at the moment, so I won't go above 100 miles an hour. However, the angles we're looking for is 17 degrees, or actually lower. This could be my hardest one, as I hit the ball so high. The spin is incredibly high as well. So for me, this will feel like a punch shot, a punch fade that's pretty steep and gonna allow to get that spin as well. Relatively low launch angle. Oh, that is toey, that's not gonna be it. 17 launch, 6,000 spin, that's just not enough. Hang on, let me just change it. I've got color codes here. Let's go 95 miles an hour. Oh, that felt good. That felt like the one. 96.2. 6,600, 16.8, 175 carry. Now I have to say, not the best strike, and to be honest, I think I only hit one of those out of four actually really well and got the 1.35 efficiency, hence why these don't get used often. And actually I was a tiny bit low on one of the numbers, but launch angle, spin rate, ball speed just crept in with the efficiency by the looks of things. Okay, moving on to 85 miles an hour. 160 yards is the goal by the looks of things. So it's halfway between that 80 and 90 miles an hour. Around 6,000 spin for a lot of stopping power. Just around 17 to 18 degrees launch angle. That felt 86.7, all be the one, 1.34 efficiency. I can't believe how well that's gone. Now those numbers there are definitely in the more mid-stopping power range. However, I still think that's relatively efficient. I feel like I'd have to hit a high cut and take off probably another 10 yards, something like that. And because I live in England, realistically the country's wet 10 months a year. I feel like that's a really good ball flight for this speed. 17.5 launch, 5,007 spin, angle attack's good, efficiency. I knew I hit it well as soon as I hit it. And ironically, because I hit it well, look at the amount of ball speed I got, even though how much slower the club head speed was from potentially the other shots I hit earlier, which were a bit tiny, thin and fat. Again, descent angle just at that mid-stopping power range, and again, peak height just under 100 foot in the air. Overall, I feel like that would be still a pretty efficient ball flight for this club head speed using this particular iron. All right, 80 miles an hour. I can't even remember the numbers I'm supposed to be hitting now. I'm just gonna hit a nice one, see what we get. Oh, 80.0. That is, I can't get better than that. Oh, spins low. I just spin the ball low. That's the only issue. Because it states if this was in the 4,000s that I'm getting low stopping power. And again, I did hit that well, but even I would agree now, this is getting to the point where that's essentially just a punch shot. And at this kind of club head speed at 80 miles an hour, I shouldn't be getting 158 yards out of this iron. And to be honest, my impact factors aren't that bad. Slightly on the inside, slightly down, but this is where a bigger head, a softer flex in shaft, which would then help my launch angle to stay up, my dynamic loft to be higher, which would increase my spin, therefore potentially getting a higher descent angle. However, just notice, apart from my rubbish strike earlier, how my club path has stayed relatively the same, getting a bit more into out now. My angle attack was a bit steeper, but then getting a bit more shallower. But how much ball speed plays a huge part in spin rate. I have the ability to launch it lower spin it more with a fast ball speed and have more stopping power than someone that swings it slower and swings shallower. Okay, I'm just going to hit one more with a slightly more open face on the way down. Try and be a bit more neutral to keep that spin rate. Oh, it's gone fast, 86.1. Notice there's 6 miles an hour difference between these two swings. Notice my club path here in terms of out to in, a lot more steeper. However, I did get more descent angle. I then got more stopping power. You can't have both in this game. You have to have one or the other, but 6,600 spin with that kind of technique. And why I'm kind of leaning on the edge, any golfer could use these with a lot of technical work and flexibility and range of movement, etc. Because you can change your impact factors to get different results from your ball flight. Both of those swings had the same amount of carry, but evidently one had more stopping power, and hopefully you potentially can see what you might need to work on if you need more control or more distance. Right, we're going to finish on 70 miles an hour. 110 yards carry with this blade. Again, I've got a feeling I'm going to have to be quite on the inside to get these kind of numbers, as well as obviously the launch. Wouldn't be advised. I'd advise something a lot bigger than this. 67.6, good efficiency. Oh, I've flown it a mile. Again, relatively decent efficiency. I've kind of just played a slinging draw. That is my shot from that particular position. And let's be honest, it's one of the reasons why I'm an awful wedge player. I think one thing that should be noted is that the way I can maneuver this golf club is that I still have the ability to get great efficiency from something that's supposed to be deemed as ultra controlling and not powerful. Everything gets labeled powerful when it's a cavity back and all that kind of stuff. Whereas actually, if you do connect the middle of the face with the club path somewhat at the target, face at the target, obviously I've de-lofted a lot with that closed face and why I hit these slinging draws from that kind of distance. But I still had the ability to get 120 yards carry from 68 miles an hour clubhead speed. That being said, don't think it's clubhead speed or power that's stopping you from using these particular clubs, but more the fact that actually it's rather easier to use a different, bigger head that's slightly more forgiving and potentially just going to give you the same results if you've got the right shaft and head combination with it. Guys, if you've got any questions on your golf bag or golf game, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you guys later.